Hi, everyone. My name is Nate Mars. I'm a producer and I am also marketing director here at Electronic Music Collective. So, a little bit about Electronic Music Collective. We're a music production and DJ learning facility in New York City and online. And we're really artist focused, helping artists to achieve creative goals. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that quickly at the end of this discussion. One of the things that's really been on my mind lately, and what I wanted to talk about in my series, is music distribution platforms online. And um, it's really been resonating, especially lately, because there's been a lot of sort of controversy from a community of artists and friends that I talk with, from Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify's recent remarks about musicians in 2020 and beyond. So recently, Daniel Ek was saying that, in responding to criticisms in a conversation he had as an audio podcast with Music Ally, that Spotify, pays sufficient royalties and that the royalty rates are fine, and that it's actually that musicians need to change the way we distribute music and we release music now to match today's economy and climate. So one of the things that I really want to dive into, first of all, is that this isn't a sponsored stream by anyone. And I do personally use Spotify myself. It's the platform that I use a lot. And, I got to say, like, the time that Spotify's developers invested in the algorithms are really great. I discover music all the time that I might not have heard any other way. And sometimes it's music that I really, really like. Another pro is being able to, as an artist, distribute your music and, pretty easily. And by the way, we're going to talk about that on another episode on my series, how to get your music on platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, etc. But one of the things you should know on the con side of this all as an artist is that royalty rates are really, really pretty low. And, so on one hand, it's the technology enabling artists to reach more people. But on the other hand, the argument is that it's artists driving these platforms' content and driving users to check it out. So let's talk about pricing for a second. I'm actually going to go over to this site called Ditto Music. They are a service that allows you to get your music on streaming platforms. I've never used them before, but they have a really nice royalty calculator on their website. So I want to use that now. Shout out to Ditto for putting this together. So what we're going to dive into is just how much do streaming services pay musicians. So one of the things to consider here is, of course, a listener's country and location. Streaming services pay different rates in different countries and location. Another thing to take into account is whether a listener has a paid subscription or a free account when they're engaging with music. A specific artist royalty rate. So, for example, in a case of Spotify and major labels who are sometimes majority preferred stock shareholders in these platforms, there are all kinds of other arrangements that can be made for certain specific artists. And then, of course, currency fluctuation and relative pricing in currency in different regions. But as we scroll further down, there's a really nice, and I'll come back to this for now and zero this out, a really nice royalty calculator, and talking about rates of what artists make when streamed on different platforms. One of the first ones here, and this was actually surprising to me, is Napster. So Napster is a platform that I actually used in the early 2000s to download music that I didn't realize I didn't have a license to, but now I have a much more solid understanding of this stuff. But Napster was primarily music downloads, and now we're talking about streaming, and Napster is paying 0.019 per stream. Then we have a platform, Tidal, which Tidal's claim to fame in streaming platforms is providing high-res streams with better audio fidelity. So their streaming rate is 0.1284 per stream. Then we have Apple Music, Google Play, Deezer, Spotify, which is 0.00437, Amazon Music, Pandora, and the lowest on this list is YouTube. And we can see we've added an extra zero, I think, in the wrong direction for YouTube. But let's take a look at where this lands us. So on Spotify, let's say I have an average with my own music as an artist of 500 to 1,000 streams per month. If I put in 1,000 streams, that is $4.37 per month from that platform. So it gets a little bit deeper when you think about some of these things in context. So first of all, the average Spotify salary, according to Payscale.com, is $114,000 a year. So, and not to say, there are many different roles at Spotify, but that's just the average Spotify salary. So in getting to that, in order to make that as a musician on this platform, at 25 million streams, I would still be under the average salary of a Spotify employee. So, it's not apples and oranges here. So I don't, just as Daniel Ek claimed that some of the comparisons and accusations to Spotify there were unfair to him, I don't think it's exactly fair to just directly compare a Spotify salary, but just talking about these things in context, I think can be helpful, because if you look at, what I'm making, I have about a bacon, egg, and cheese and a coffee in Bushwick every month is about that's what my royalties from a platform like Spotify are paying me. So let's talk about this now. So how did it all start? So one of the things that was really interesting to me, and I was thinking about this a lot, is iTunes. If we think about iTunes for a second, and where streaming music was, and thinking about it in the context of, so back in the day, you may remember the CD, where primarily when music was switching over to streaming, the last platform that was the most popular were CDs. And so we were definitely in a very much more album-based format. A lot of people today say, oh, it's only singles now, just release singles. You don't need to release albums anymore. Me personally, as an artist, I still really like albums, and I really like when I'm taken on a journey by an artist. I'm one of those people that never skips an interlude. I'm always going through all of that stuff because it's what the artist intended, and I really like diving into an album as an experience. But on that note, in the time when CDs went to iTunes, with iTunes being one of the first platforms, with the, along with the iPod coming shortly later, where you could download and have, hundreds of thousands of songs in your pocket, as a physical download on essentially a hard drive that you could access with the jog wheel. We were talking about a precedent that was set where one song was $1 to download. And that's sort of like, okay, if a typical CD has like 18 songs, okay, $18 is the cost of a CD. If you went to the Wiz at the time, the Wiz is closed, but shout out the Wiz. It was my favorite CD store growing up. Then you're looking at, okay, $18 on iTunes sounds reasonable. And then it went down to the $9.99 specials, just like sort of physical retail. But as they were, figuring out that model, there were a lot of things that to me still needed to be figured out. And, as we've seen now, as we've gone over to streaming, the slices of the pie have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, with many more artists being able to release on these platforms. So on one hand, it's accessibility from the artist to just be able to get your stuff on there. So more content creators, but also more slices of the pie and less ways to divvy it up, from ad revenue and things like that. And also, acquisitions of content and catalog from the majors to independent labels. So break things down kind of differently. Um, so basically, before diving into another episode in my series of talking about how to get your music out on Spotify with platforms like TuneCore, CD Baby, DistroKid, I want to make you aware of the way that these platforms price things out, because there's there's all kinds of other options too, like platforms like Bandcamp allow you to set the rate that you want for your music and sell physical CDs or tapes, as well as streaming, and sort of operate on a pay what you want model. And the other thing I wanted to talk about quickly is that in this role, in this kind of new era of streaming, which once again I make the disclaimer that there are many aspects of it that I like. The the role of labels also certainly is changing. Historically, on one hand, there are some labels that, as we've gone into streaming, there are some labels that are very much more connected to things like tour support and bigger live venue companies and live tours like Live Nation. And what we've kind of seen is a shift where some people seem to think about music as promo for your live show. And there's been arguments of like, well, it doesn't really matter on how much you're making from streaming, because with all of Spotify's great artist analytics, we can see that a bunch of streamers are in Colorado, so who cares if you're making a few cents? Go tour in Colorado and you'll make up the money there. But where it gets kind of tricky, especially now in a pandemic, is that streaming is the only platform for both. So we have listeners listening and engaging with these platforms on live streaming, and they're the pie is divided there. And now for performances, at least right now in a pandemic, we also have musicians going to platforms like Twitch or YouTube, where I am right now, to be able to interact with people and reach people. And it's just it's an interesting predicament that remains to be solved. But I guess my personal feeling is, because I do see it both ways, as a marketer, but also someone who deeply cares about making music. I mean, I do ultimately, I guess, find that the royalty rates don't sit well with me. And I do hope to see that change in the future. So yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to discuss. If you guys have any questions, definitely be sure to post them in the comments. Um, and yes, that's true. Nobody beats the Wiz. I see you. And now I wanted to just once again tell you a little bit more about EMC. So once again, we're a music production school based in New York and online. We offer classes teaching in tools like Ableton and Logic Pro. We teach mixing, we teach DJing, all the way from the ground up, from vinyl to more of the digital platforms that many people are working with today. And we really want to help you grow as an artist. All of our staff are artists making music. And it's just working with you, artist to artist, to help you achieve your creative goals. So please be sure to tune in. We're going to be streaming again. My streams are going to be every day, where I'm covering music technology, and we're going to be doing that every Thursday at 3. On Tuesday next week, we're going to continue on with live streams from our tech team, where they're going to be helping you up your live streaming game. They're going to be talking about all kinds of things like cameras, lighting setups, green screens, and more. And then finally, next week on Friday, we're going to have a live stream from our curriculum director, Pat Cupo, called Patch from Scratch, where he is going to be showing some really interesting things with sound design and synthesis. So be sure to stick around. Please stay tuned. And I hope to see you and catch up with you next week. Thank you.